It started with a smile and ended with a storm. Jennifer Lopez had walked into the studio that morning expecting a warm welcome, a few laughs, and a casual chat about her new projects. Instead, what she got was an on-air showdown so raw, so uncomfortable. It left the entire set in stunned silence, and the internet ablaze for days. This wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was a collision of ideologies live on national television, between two women who have both built their careers on strength, but found themselves standing on opposite sides of a battlefield neither expected. What was supposed to be a light guest appearance on The View unraveled into one of the most intense and unfiltered confrontations daytime TV has ever broadcast. And at the center of it all, a question no one was prepared to answer. What does it really mean to struggle? When the world thinks you have everything, before we go deeper, don't forget to like this video and drop a comment below. Would you have stood your ground or tried to keep the peace, even if it meant staying silent? The lights in the studio were blazing, cameras prepped, audience buzzing, crew in motion. It was just another Tuesday morning on The View, or so everyone thought. Jennifer Lopez took her seat at the guest table, radiant and composed, dressed in polished elegance as she prepared to talk about her upcoming tour, new projects, and her latest role in the ever-evolving world of entertainment. She was ready to charm, to inspire, to deliver the kind of effortless charisma only she could. What she wasn't ready for was the ambush. From the moment she sat down, something felt off. Not hostile exactly, just ... charged. Across the table, Whoopi Goldberg sat poised, arms folded, eyes sharp and unreadable. It was the look longtime viewers had come to recognize. Something was brewing, and Jennifer, veteran of countless interviews, sensed it instantly. She smiled through it. She adjusted her seat. She waited for the usual softball question to ease them in. But instead, Whoopi cut right to it. "So, Jennifer," she began, her voice calm but edged with something colder. "I want to circle back to some things you said recently. About being a working mom in Hollywood. The tone measured, the intent, anything but." Jennifer blinked, briefly caught off guard. She leaned forward slightly, her smile softening into something more thoughtful. "I was just sharing my own journey," she replied, keeping her voice steady. "Balancing career and motherhood comes with emotional weight, no matter what your circumstances look like from the outside." Whoopi nodded, but her eyes didn't soften. "See, that's the thing," she said, sitting forward. "You talk about the emotional burden of being a working mother, but you've got nannies, assistants, chefs, drivers. You've got help. So how does that compare to a woman working night shifts with no support system, just trying to keep the lights on?" The room went still. Jennifer could feel the shift. This wasn't going to be a cozy conversation. This was a test, and the cameras were already rolling. She held her ground. "I never claimed our experiences were identical. But guilt, that's universal. Missing milestones, feeling torn between work and family, money doesn't erase." That Whoopi tilted her head, unimpressed. "Missing bedtime while flying on private jets isn't the same as missing bedtime because you're cleaning floors overnight and can't afford childcare. You're painting hardship with a brush that doesn't apply to you. That's tone deaf, Jen." Jennifer's jaw tightened. "I think you're twisting what I said," she answered, her voice firmer now. "I never said our struggles were the same. I said all mothers, regardless of status, wrestle with guilt. That's not about wealth, that's about love." And then, the interruption. "Oh, please," Whoopi said, waving her hand as if swatting away a lie. "You want sympathy for feeling bad while on a movie set earning millions. That's not struggle, that's PR." Jennifer took a breath, slow and deep. This was no longer an interview. It was a courtroom, and she was on trial. "I'm not asking for sympathy," she said. "I'm being honest, and I refuse to be told that I'm not allowed to feel pain just because I have success." Across the table, Whoopi's smirk returned, but there was no warmth in it. "So let me get this straight," she said. "You're saying your pain, your emotional dilemma of missing your kids while living in luxury, is just as valid as the mother who's choosing between buying groceries and paying rent?" The energy in the studio dropped to a low hum, thick with tension. The other co-hosts sat frozen, visibly uncomfortable but unsure whether to intervene. Jennifer looked directly at Whoopi. "I didn't say that, and you know I didn't. But what you're doing right now, minimizing my experience because it doesn't look like yours, that's not fair or helpful." Whoopi leaned back, arms crossed. "You want fairness? Then use your platform to speak for those women who actually need it. Don't center yourself in their struggle." That line, it hit hard, and just when it seemed like the moment might cool, Jennifer pushed back. "So, because I've achieved success, I should stay silent about motherhood, about my reality. That's not empowerment, that's censorship." Whoopi's eyes narrowed. "You want to talk about support? she said, her tone laced with mockery. How about supporting them, the real women, instead of turning every conversation into a spotlight on you? The air had gone icy. You could hear every breath, every rustle from the audience. Jennifer straightened her spine. I do support other women. I always have. But supporting others doesn't mean silencing yourself. That's not how any of this works. Then came the stare. Whoopi's trademark glare, sharpened by decades in the industry and a reputation for cutting through fluff with brutal honesty. What I hear, she said slowly, is someone playing the victim while sitting in privilege. Jennifer blinked. Her voice dropped a notch, calm but deliberate. What I hear is a woman trying to make me feel small for speaking my truth. That's when the temperature in the room reached boiling. And believe it or not, that wasn't even the worst part. A co-host finally shifted, clearly unsettled. One of them opened her mouth to try and redirect. Maybe we should, but Whoopi cut her off with a sideways glance that said, not yet. Let her talk. Jennifer took a breath, steadying herself. Every camera was locked in. Every viewer at home would replay this moment. She knew it. She could either backpedal, lure, double down. She chose the latter. I think what's happening right now, she said carefully, is you're not hearing me. You're hearing what you expect someone like me to say, and it's clouding the actual conversation. Whoopi leaned in, a challenge rising in her voice. Oh, I'm hearing you just fine. I'm hearing a wealthy entertainer trying to package guilt as struggle and sell it as a universal experience. But it's not universal when you've got a team handling the hardest parts for you. Jennifer's eyes didn't flinch. And I'm hearing someone who doesn't believe pain exists unless it looks like theirs. The silence that followed was deafening. And then, a flash of something dangerous passed across Whoopi's face. She sat forward. You're saying I'm the problem? Jennifer held her gaze. I'm saying that dismissing another woman's feelings because they don't mirror yours, that's the problem. The moment cracked open, Whoopi's voice dropped low, sharp, with restraint. You really want to go there with me? On my stage, Jennifer matched her tone. I came here thinking we'd have a real conversation, but it turns out, the only real thing happening here is you trying to drag me for expressing mine. You think this is dragging you? Whoopi asked, eyes flashing. I think this is you trying to make a point at my expense, Jennifer replied, because you've already decided who gets to talk about struggle and who doesn't. Whoopi gave a bitter laugh, the kind that says you don't get it tanned, you never will. You want to lecture me about struggle? She asked, sitting back. Sweetheart, I've been through more in 1 decade than you probably have in your whole career. Jennifer's composure held but just barely. I respect your journey, she said, but that doesn't give you the right to police mine. And that's when it shifted from uncomfortable to outright explosive. Whoopi's smile disappeared. You've got some nerve, she said slowly. Coming on my show and accusing me of tearing women down after everything I've fought for? Jennifer's voice dropped, but her eyes were fierce. What I'm saying is, respect goes both ways. You don't get to preach sisterhood while turning a woman's vulnerability into target practice. The other co-hosts exchanged panicked looks now. One of them started again, ladies. Maybe we should take, but Whoopi lifted a hand. No, I want to hear what else she thinks she knows about me, she said, voice cold as glass. Jennifer took a breath. Her fingers clenched slightly beneath the table. She could retreat or speak the truth. She leaned forward. I think you've built a legacy on being a voice for women, she said. But today, you're using that voice to silence one. The words dropped like thunder. You could almost hear the camera lenses zoom in. Whoopi's jaw clenched. My truth, she said, is calling out people who act like they're suffering when all they're doing is performing. Jennifer's voice was calm but electric. My truth is that being a mother, no matter your bank account, comes with guilt, with pressure, with heartache. And if you can't acknowledge that because of my job or my clothes, then maybe you're not as supportive as you claim to be. Whoopi shot up from her chair, the sound of wood scraping across the stage, making the audience flinch. You don't come into my studio and tell me who I am, she said, voice rising. You don't sit in that chair and act like you've lived my life. Jennifer didn't move. I'm not pretending to live your life, she replied, but don't pretend you know mine either. The two women stared each other down, standing now, face to face, neither willing to yield an inch. The energy in the studio had gone nuclear. Producers behind the scenes were frantically signaling for a commercial break, but Whoopi wasn't budging. She waved them off with a fierce flick of her wrist. No, she said, her voice low and guttural. Let this play out. Because at this point it wasn't about motherhood anymore. It wasn't even about privilege or pain. It was about power and who had the right to claim it. Whoopi's voice lowered, but the fury behind it only deepened. You know what your real problem is, Jennifer? She asked, each word heavy and deliberate. You think that because you've starred in movies, sold records, and smiled through red carpets, you've somehow earned the right to speak for every woman. But the truth is you live in a bubble, and that bubble has made you blind. Jennifer's lips parted, cut between disbelief and insult. My problem, she repeated, stepping in just enough to close the distance. My problem is that I showed up here to have a real conversation. I came here as a mother, a woman, and a guest. But instead, I got ambushed by someone who clearly decided who I was before I even opened my mouth. The studio audience was dead silent. No laughter, no murmurs. Just a collective tension stretching thin. Whoopi didn't blink. You're deflecting. You came here to promote your latest project, and when asked a real question, you couldn't handle the heat. Jennifer didn't back down. Know what I couldn't handle is being told that my feelings don't count? That because I've had success, I'm no longer allowed to struggle. That's not journalism, Whoopi. That's judgment. You think I'm judging you? Whoopi's voice cracked like a whip. I'm holding you accountable. There's a difference. Or maybe you've been surrounded by yes people for so long, you've forgotten what that looks like. Jennifer's jaw clenched, her tone sharpening. No, I know exactly what accountability looks like. This isn't it. This is character assassination, dressed up as a tough interview. That line landed like a punch. Even the crew behind the cameras stopped. Pretending to focus on their monitors, Whoopi stood straighter, her arms folded, her glare unrelenting. Assassination, she asked, voice thick with mockery. You really think that's what this is? You're sitting in a designer outfit worth more than some people make in a year, complaining that I asked you a question you didn't like? That's not assassination. That's reality knocking on your gilded door. Jennifer's voice dropped to a steel edge. What I'm wearing has nothing to do with my right to talk about my life. My reality may be different, but it's still real. Whoopi was silent for a beat. Then she said, You want to talk about reality? Reality is the single mom working doubles and still going home to help with homework. Reality is choosing between diapers and dinner. You being sad on a movie set doesn't change that. Jennifer's hand pressed lightly on the table as she leaned forward. And do you think I don't know that? She asked. Do you think I don't see what other women go through, you think? I don't care. That because I have help, I somehow stopped being human? Whoopi's smile returned, but it was sharp, laced with venom. I think that when people like you talk about struggle, it drowns out the voices that need to be heard more. And frankly, I think you're smart enough to know that. That was the moment Jennifer's composure cracked. Her voice, though still calm, vibrated with restrained fury. I'm smart enough to know when someone's twisting my words to serve a narrative, and I'm strong enough not to let it go unchecked. Whoopi stepped back slightly, folding her arms again as if to say, All right then, let's go there. So what exactly do you think I'm doing, Jennifer? Say it. Jennifer's voice didn't waver. I think you're using your platform to make an example out of me. I think you're so focused on reminding people that you've earned this table, you've forgotten what it was built for. Conversation, respect, dialogue. Whoopi scoffed. Oh, you want respect now? After sitting here implying I'm bitter? That I've lost touch? Jennifer didn't flinch. I didn't imply anything. I said that tearing down another woman for sharing her truth isn't support, it's sabotage. The silence between them stretched again. Only this time, it wasn't heavy. It was electric. The other co-hosts looked like they were trapped in a storm they had no idea how to calm. One whispered to a producer off camera, likely begging for the segment to be cut. But neither woman had any intention of stopping because what began as a debate about working mothers had transformed into something else entirely now. It was about identity, and neither of them was ready to lose. Jennifer's eyes were locked on Whoopi now, unblinking, unafraid. You say I'm out of touch, she said, voice steady, but the truth is, you've stopped listening. You've decided that if someone's life doesn't mirror yours, they have nothing meaningful to say, and that's not power. That's ego. Whoopi's nostrils flared. You want to talk about ego? She said, her voice thick with disbelief. You came in here with your entourage, your glam squad, your PR team, and now you're playing the role of the misunderstood working mom. Please. Jennifer's tone dropped lower, firmer. I didn't bring my glam squad into this conversation. You did. I came here as myself, and that should have been enough. But instead, you made it personal. You are personal, Whoopi snapped. Everything about you is curated. Your relationships, your career, your image. It's all performance. That was the crack Jennifer had been waiting for, the shift from professional to personal. And she seized it, performance. She echoed the word sharp in her mouth. You want to reduce everything I've built, everything I've worked for, to a performance? You have no idea what it's taken to survive in this industry, in this spotlight as a woman, as a mother, as a Latina. Whoopi smirked, but it didn't reach her eyes. I know survival, she said. I know what it's like to fight. For every seat at the table, to be told I was too much or not enough, and I sure as hell know the difference between vulnerability and branding. Jennifer's voice rose, not in volume, but in intensity. And I know the difference between constructive criticism and public shaming. That stopped Whoopi for half a second. But only half. Oh, so now you're the victim? She asked mockingly. You come on my show, spew a one-size-fits-all sob story. And when someone asks you to clarify, you crumble. I'm not crumbling, Jennifer said, standing now. I'm rising. Whoopi's chair scraped back across the floor as she rose too, face to face. Two icons, two voices, two forces refusing to blink first. You really think you're doing something brave right now? Whoopi asked. You think this is empowerment? Jennifer nodded slowly. Yes, because I won't be silenced. Not by you, not by anyone. Then go ahead, Whoopi challenged, arms crossed. Tell the world how hard your life is. Tell them what it's like to cry in a mansion. Jennifer didn't flinch. I will tell them what it's like to cry, period. And if that makes people uncomfortable, that's not my problem. The audience didn't know whether to gasp or clap. The energy had shifted from explosive to surreal, like everyone was watching something they weren't supposed to see. One co-host tried again. Maybe we should take a break. But Whoopi wasn't done. You came here to talk about motherhood, she said, her voice trembling now with restrained rage. But you turned it into a pity party. Jennifer's voice for the first time trembled too, but with conviction. No, you turned it into a spectacle. I came here to be real. You decided that wasn't good enough. Whoopi stepped closer. I decided you weren't being honest. Jennifer met her halfway. No, you decided I wasn't being you, and that's the only truth you respect. For a moment there was nothing, just silence. Then Whoopi's hands slammed the table, startling everyone in the studio. This is my show, she said through gritted teeth. My table. And I get to say when the line's been crossed. Jennifer didn't back away. Then maybe it's time someone crossed it. The chaos erupted all at once. Producers waving, co-hosts rising from their seats, camera operators exchanging panicked looks. The stage, once polished and controlled, now felt like a battleground, and in the center of it all were two women who refused to bow. Jennifer's voice sliced through the noise. You've made it clear this isn't a conversation, it's a takedown, and I won't stand here and let you strip me of my voice just to prove a point. Whoopi's voice was ice. You've said enough. Jennifer turned to go, purse in hand, back straight, heels clicking against the floor like a drumbeat of defiance. But then she paused, turned back, and her final words echoed louder than any shout. I came here believing this show stood for something for women, for honesty, for dialogue. But now I see it's become a stage for tearing down the very people it claims to uplift. Whoopi's face darkened. Get out of my studio. Jennifer didn't blink. Gladly, she walked off set, head held high, leaving behind stunned silence, and a host shaking with rage. And just like that, daytime television had its most unforgettable moment. The studio doors clicked shut behind her, and for a full 5 seconds, no one moved. Not the crew, not the audience, not the women left seated at the table, just Whoopi, still standing, fists clenched, chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. Then she turned to face the cameras. Her voice, when it returned, was tight, controlled, almost too controlled. Well, she said flatly, I guess that tells you everything you need to know. There was no applause, no laughter, just a haunting stillness that hovered like smoke. After a fire, Whoopi straightened the edge of her blazer, sat down slowly, and continued as if nothing had happened, but the spark in her voice was gone. The fire had already burned through the room, and there was nothing left to ignite. Backstage, Jennifer walked without saying a word. Past makeup, past wardrobe, past interns who had gone pale watching the monitors. She didn't pause, didn't cry. She just walked. And when she stepped out into the daylight, blinking against the sun, she did so with the kind of dignity that can't be manufactured. She hadn't stormed off. She hadn't run. She had chosen to leave. And that made all the difference. Within hours, clips flooded social media. TikToks dissected every second of the exchange. Twitter threads asked who was right, who was wrong, who crossed the line first. Instagram reels quoted Jennifer's partying words, set to piano music and slow fades. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was a cultural moment. The debate was fierce. Some praised Whoopi for pressing Jennifer on her privilege, for refusing to let wealth sugarcoat reality. Others accused her of taking a swing at someone who had come in peace, of turning a conversation about motherhood into a personal grudge match. And then there were those who didn't pick sides because they saw something deeper. To women, both powerful in different ways, crashing into each other at full emotional speed. neither willing to yield, both convinced they were right, both speaking from a place of lived truth. And maybe that was the real tragedy, that in trying to have a conversation about unity, they'd ended up more divided than ever. But one thing no one could deny: Jennifer didn't crumble. She didn't falter. She stood tall. She spoke clearly. She left with her integrity intact. And when she posted later that night, a single sentence, against a black screen, it hit like thunder across the internet. Truth doesn't come with a price tag. No hashtags, no follow-up, just those 6 words. The reactions were instant. Thousands of comments, millions of views. Supporters flooding her page with stories of their own. Mothers, daughters, workers, dreamers saying, "I felt that, I've been there. Thank you." And as for Whoopi, she addressed it briefly the next morning, said her piece, reasserted her stance. But her tone had shifted. It was sharper, more defensive. Because no matter how long you've been at the table, sometimes the room changes without you noticing. Sometimes power doesn't come from volume, it comes from grace. And Jennifer had walked out not as a diva, not as a celebrity, but as a woman who refused to shrink. The episode would go down in talk show history. People would argue about it for years, use it as a case study, quote it in essays, clip it into motivational montages and reality TV spoofs alike. But behind all the noise, one question lingered like a shadow. Why is it so hard to let 2 truths exist at once? Why can't a woman with success also feel pain? Why can't someone who struggled also hold others accountable? Why does empathy disappear the moment we think someone has it all? Maybe that was the real story, the one hiding behind the sound bites and viral clips. Not a fight between 2 women, but a mirror held up to a world that still can't figure out how to let women speak without first deciding what they're allowed to feel. What do you think? Did Jennifer walk away stronger, or should she have stayed and fought to the bitter end? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more moments that pull back the curtain on Hollywood's most intense showdowns. Because sometimes, the real drama doesn't happen on screen. It happens live.